Now, is this pure at the moment? Do you think this is purely a democratic problem, or is this also happening on the right? Because I think on the left we have people maybe trying to censor people's speech when they speak about anything they might find offensive, but then we also find on the right with Trump trying to get rid of news corporations that he would deem fake news. So does it happen both sides?
Oh, definitely. And this is why I'm uncomfortable with the term cancel culture, because generally when somebody uses it, what they're saying is the other side is canceling. And they're not wrong, but the problem is they're not looking in the mirror. Cancel culture is real, but especially in the American context, it's eminently bipartisan. And arguably, the Republican form of cancel culture is worse just because it has more teeth. So in the United States right now, there are over 15 states that are considering bills that would prevent schools from teaching the 1619 Project. What is that except cancel culture? And it's brought to you almost exclusively by Republicans.
I'm also seeing in the United States, people are campaigning to get rid of certain names on buildings and schools and statues and stuff. I think one of the most absurd one I think I saw was a school that wanted to get rid of the name Lincoln somewhere.
Yes.
It's almost like they're trying to cancel Lincoln. So how important is it to not try and cancel people from the past or hold them to today's standards? It just seems a bit ridiculous to me.
Yes. Well, look, that's another issue. And I do think it's radically ahistoric to judge people from the past by our standards, as you put it. But I'm a historian and I have another, let's just say, special bailiwick here. My real fear is that we'll actually lose history. That is, if we start eliminating these names, people will know less about them. Now, look, some people, like, say, leaders of the Ku Klux Klan, they did things that are so heinous that I think it's quite justified, say, for a school to rename itself if it's named after somebody that was in the Klan. And all of these questions are difficult. I don't want to try to simplify them. But as a historian, I'm deeply concerned about the airbrushing of history, especially by people who want us to reckon with race and racism. It seems to me there's an enormous tension and contradiction there. So, one of the monuments that came down in New Orleans was a monument. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but basically it was a monument to white people that staged a pogrom, basically a riot, during the brief moment of Reconstruction when the federal government was trying to enforce Black civil rights and voting rights in the South. We're talking about in the years just after the Civil War. And this monument, by the way, which was taken down, it was put up in the 20s or the 30s, and it had a plaque on it that said, these great heroes fought to rejuvenate white supremacy. And by the way, that's true, they did. But how is it a victory in the battle for white supremacy to take down that plaque? I would argue it's quite the opposite. That indeed, if we want to fight white supremacy, we have to retain those kinds of monuments so we know what it was and what it did. This debate, too, at least in the United States context, has been radically polarized in a hugely unhelpful way. Basically, this is the debate in the United States. You have people that say these are monuments to white supremacy and they have to come down, versus people that say, oh no, they're just monuments to Southern heritage or something like that, and they're very nice things and we have to keep them up. There are very few people in my camp which are saying these are monuments to white supremacy, and that's precisely why we need to preserve them, so we remember what it was. Now, they don't necessarily need pride of place, like standing above the city on some gigantic pedestal. But when these monuments are removed, they're often put in undisclosed locations. I'm sorry, man, like WTF, undisclosed locations. Like, that's what you do in totalitarian societies. Like, that's not democratic. So look, we've got a huge problem with racism in the United States in our history and in our present. I don't think any reasonable person debates that. I think the real debate is what to do about it. I would argue that airbrushing, whitewashing, and removing this stuff is not helpful in that campaign. It will have conservative effects, even though it's brought to you by people that position themselves as radicals.
Yeah, we had something similar in the UK during the Black Lives Matter kind of protest. There was one statue in Bristol that got torn down and thrown into the water.
Yeah.
And there was some dispute over people trying to do the same with Winston Churchill statues, but you had crowds trying to protect it as well.
Right.
So I think that these issues are so they're so blurry that it's hard to draw a line over who should be up there and who
Right.
shouldn't. And obviously, Winston Churchill, it's maybe acceptable to acknowledge that he was racist, but also acknowledge that what he did as a leader.
And those aren't inconsistent, right? I mean,
Yeah.
why can't we say both things at the same time?
Yeah.
Churchill was, an avowed colonialist. He called Gandhi a funny little naked fakir. And by the way, like he also, defended Britain in its finest hour against the Blitz. Those two things are true. Both of them are 100% true. Why can't we say them at the same time?